ultimately, we can't predict things like what happened to us this morning. And so when these nice winter Michigan storms happen, I can tell you this much. I live about 5 minutes away. I can get here no matter what. And so I will be here. And as long as anybody else wants to join me, 2 or more are gathered, he is there in our midst. Amen. And so whether our attendance is high or low or somewhere in between, what does not vary is the very presence of the Lord. And I am extremely grateful for this opportunity to gather and just get to know him a little bit better. Amen. Well, it's been a few weeks for me. 2 of those weeks were planned off. One of those turned into me just spontaneously being back there with the kids. And so for all the teachers back there, thank you for what you do. It is a lot more difficult than people probably give you credit for. And so thank you for your time, thank you for your compassion, and thank you for the love that you place on the children of this church. And then last week happened, and last week, well, let's just get into the Word. Let's just get into the Word. So we have a parable this morning, surprise, surprise. Luke chapter 12 is where we're going to start this morning. Luke chapter 12, verse 13. So someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest, and he thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." And then he said, "This is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry." Verse 20, but God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God." So I'm going to explain this parable, 3 little quick points as our appetizer for today's main course. The first one, again, if you didn't pick up on this, I don't know how to help you. But this is a parable with a direct warning against greed and earthly possessions. Worldly possessions. Things that can be taken from you in a moment's glance. And so again, we need to be extremely cautious where we place our confidence. And I can say, as my repentance often comes from the pulpit publicly, I got a little bit mixed up. And I had started placing my confidence in things that could be just taken, snatched away at the drop of a dime. And then what happens when those things do get taken away? And we're going to answer some of that here in a moment. But again, just a direct warning. Be careful. Be careful where you place your confidence. Second point really quickly is the importance of life and how our time here is limited. So make the most of it. And that was just a simple, quick understanding. Make the most of it. If you have opportunities to store your earthly treasures or your kingdom treasures, that should be a quick response. I want to start storing up kingdom treasures. I want to start pursuing the will of God. I want to start pursuing the kingdom of heaven with everything that I have, with everything that I am, with no hesitations and no restraint. Because those are the treasures that cannot be taken away from us. So where are you storing your treasures? And then the third quick point, and again, all of these are pretty simple to understand, but true wealth is being rich toward God, filled with spiritual generosity that honors God and builds His kingdom. Amen? Pretty simple parable this morning. Let's pray. So, Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for your word. Lord, we thank you that it is the word that changes lives. And so this morning we open up our hearts and we open up our ears to you this morning. Lord, we give you permission to plant seeds, to water seeds, to harvest seeds. We give you permission to do whatever you see fit. We love you and we bless you in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Man, so ultimately where I want to kind of get the meat and potatoes of today's message, and I have to get back in the swing of things at some point. You find out that when you start mounting up excuses in whatever that you're doing, you find your feet dragging along. And so then when you look back, you don't see footsteps anymore. You just see these trails of feet dragging. And that's how I kind of felt for about a week now. And I can sit here and I can blame X, Y, and Z. I could say, well, I didn't anticipate being more sick this time around than I was back in 2019. Yeah, there was a thing in 2019, 2020 that got a lot of people sick. This was worse than that. And so as I sat there and for days, it was 3.5 days, it felt like I couldn't do anything but groan. Anything but just mumble. I was in so much discomfort, so much suffering. And I'm just going to get right down to the nitty-gritty of why we're going to be in the book of Job today, but a question came from within. And the question was this: when you have nothing, including your own health, is Jesus enough? And that question just resonated with me for days as tears are pouring down my face and open-heartedly having to admit, yes, Lord, you are enough for me despite the circumstance that I am going through right now. And so then as I'm sitting here thinking, and I love thinking about the Word. I love meditating on the Word. It is where I find my encouragement. And so you can find encouragement anywhere and everywhere. You can identify with any character that you want to. And I just straight out looked at Job. And I just said, I just want to revisit this for just a moment. And so we're going to read a few verses in Job. I'm going to highlight some. I'm going to summarize some. And we're going to make an ultimate point here with this question that you should be asking yourself. Is Jesus enough when you have nothing? Job chapter 1. Verse 1, in the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, and a large number of servants. If that wasn't enough, this very next line is one that should make you think for a minute. He was the greatest man among all the people of the East. 3 verses, and we just got a lot of information about who this Job character was. And again, how does it start out? First and foremost, it starts out by being blameless and righteous, being upright. He feared God. And so if you want anybody to say anything about you, if those are the first couple things somebody says about you, you're doing a pretty dang good job. Let's just be real. That should be our goals. What do people say about us? I want somebody to say he was blameless and upright. Do I feel blameless and upright? Absolutely not. I don't feel that way. But we can say that because of who is inside of us, who is working through us, who has covered us in his own blood, giving us this right standing where then we can confidently walk into the throne room of God saying, here I am. I don't understand it, but my faith tells me I'm blameless and upright. And so those would be just two of the biggest compliments that you could ever receive. And I love that the Word wrote that about Job. And so it is written forever and ever and ever about Job. He was blameless and upright. Now, if that wasn't enough, he had a lot of things. And so I quickly read that list. He had camels, he had donkeys, he had oxen, he had children. He had 7, lots of children. And so Job just had a lot of things. And then again, he's known as the greatest man among all the people of the East. We're going to go down to verse 6. One day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." So again, I take a quick moment, and you would have to know that 1 Peter 5:8 reiterates exactly what Job is saying, as Satan admits exactly what he is and who he is. Who are you? What are you doing? Roaming the earth. What does 1 Peter say about him in roaming the earth? 1 Peter 5:8 says this, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour." So Satan is doing exactly what Satan is supposed to be doing. He is roaming the earth looking for someone to devour. And he's having this question, or he's having this interaction with the Lord. And his interaction is, what are you doing? I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm roaming around looking for something to devour. And so then again, it makes you think lions, and it makes you think of how lions hunt, and it makes you think of who they target, and all of these things. And if you don't know, go turn on National Geographic, watch some lion pride documentary. It won't take you long to figure out how lions hunt. They don't just come right out in the open and say, "Hey, here I am. Which one of you idiots is going to stay behind so I can devour you?" No, they ambush. They're predators of ambush. They're predators of opportunity. They sneak. They manipulate. They give this false even security at times, where it's like you're watching this whole pack, and the lion is 5 feet from them, and they're just grazing away as if nothing is going on, when 5 feet away from them certain death exists. This is how a lion hunts. And so what I'm trying to say here is, as 1 Peter 5:8 tells us to be alert and of sober mind, be vigilant. You have an enemy that wants to destroy you. And I will tell you the 2 quickest ways for you to be more susceptible to his attacks. Isolated, weak. That's what a lion does. And so as that lion is waiting in the brush and it's observing this pack, what is it looking for? It's not looking for the biggest one standing in the middle of everything. It's looking for that one off, the one that strayed a little bit too far away, or the one that has a little bit of a limp to it, or the one that's a little bit scrawnier. That's what the lion's going to target. Why? Because it's easy. He doesn't have to exert as much energy when it comes to taking down a sickling or a weakened or an isolated member of whatever prey he's looking at. And so then again, it's as simple as this to me, is if the scriptures are telling us, point blank out of Satan's own mouth, what he does, roams around looking to kill, steal, and destroy. Jesus reiterates this in the Gospel of John when he talks about Satan. And then Peter gives it an exclamation point saying, hey, let's not forget here. You, in fact, do have an enemy that wants to kill you, that wants to destroy you, that will do everything in his power to come at you in your weakest moment. What are you going to do about it? And simply put, we're not going to go there today, but I do want you all to write this down as your reminder. You have spiritual armor that you should be putting on. Ephesians chapter 6. Ephesians chapter 6 reminds us of a few things. First and foremost, what it reminds us of, we have an enemy. That enemy is not flesh and blood. And so how does it say in Ephesians chapter 6? It calls it this: rulers, authorities, powers of this dark world, and spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. That is your enemy. And so I can sit here and I will humbly say, I do not think I'm important enough for Satan to be roaming around going, I'm going to go up to the Lord and I'm going to have a conversation about that Marc guy in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I don't think I'm that important. But what I do know is this, that there is an army. There is more than one of these spiritual evil forces that is coming against you. And if you have an enemy that is coming against you that is not flesh and blood, so you cannot grab a gun or a sword or whatever it is and literally remove this enemy, what is your option? You better put on the full armor of the Lord. And that's what the rest of Ephesians chapter 6 is about. So go read it. And again, if you're not putting on armor, what is your expectation to even stand in front of an enemy? Because sometimes I think that's what we do. Sometimes I think, nonchalantly this day, I'm not going to put my helmet on. I'm not going to buckle all this truth up with my belt. You know that breastplate that covers all of my vital organs? Nah, I'll forget that this day. And that's the very day that lion is sitting there going, got him today. And when that got him today happens again, what is our proper response? So let's go figure out real quick what happens to the rest of Job here as there's this dialogue between them. And the Lord flat out says, have you considered my servant Job? And so if the Lord is going to authorize this sort of attack, I would then have to say the Lord is very confident that Job is going to stand through this sort of attack. The Lord is not going to give you something that is going to crush you to the point that you have no more faith at all. Everything that you are going through is actually designed to bring you closer to Him. And as you get closer to Him, guess what happens? You actually gain in your strength. You gain in your wisdom. You gain in all of the necessary attributes to handle attacks from the enemy because none of those attributes come from yourself. Amen? So here's Job. They're having this conversation and then the permission is granted. Go ahead and mess with them. I'm going to summarize the next 10 verses, 9 through 19, in Job chapter 1. Satan was given permission to strike, and oh, did he ever. So it looks like this. All of those oxen that Job had, gone. All of those sheep that Job had, gone. All of those camels that Job had, gone. All of those servants, and the word said he had a lot of them. Guess what? They're gone. And they're gone through all of these series of tragedies, really. One of them, and I thought was interesting, is as one servant was allowed to live through this situation, I suppose, he comes up and he says, he basically blames a fire from God on what just happened to all of these sheep and all of these servants. So Job, after all of these, is getting this report. Some guy flies in and says, hey man, remember 7,000? No, you don't have those anymore. Job would be looking at that going, oh. Next guy flies into the room. Hey, those 500 oxen that you used to plow your fields, you don't have those anymore. Next guy comes in and tells him about his camels. Next guy comes in and tells him about his servants. All the way down to his own children who were eating and drinking in this house. And it says these 4 winds from all the corners of the earth came and knocked down this house. And now he doesn't have any of his children either. And so all of his worldly possessions, all the way down to his kids, gone. And what I want to give is in verse 20, why we're talking about this momentarily, is because Job's response is everything. Job's response in verse 20, after getting all of this devastating news. At this, Job got up, he tore his robe, he shaved his head, then he fell to the ground in complaints. He fell to the ground in worship. Wow. Wow. And so now we're reading about somebody that the Bible identifies as blameless and upright, fearing the Lord. What does it look like in real time to be able to even say some of those things about yourself? Well, in calamity, what are we doing? And if it's grumbling and it's complaining and it's looking at our situations as if our God isn't bigger than the very situations that we're in, we're not doing this right at all. And so again, Scripture gives us more examples of what this looks like. And I think it's in Thessalonians, but it simply says this. Maybe it's Philippians actually. Philippians, do everything without grumbling. That is just a flat-out command from the Lord. Do everything without grumbling. And I, again, am sitting here saying, what is our default? Grumbling. Complaining. And so if that's my default, then what is the response? Crucify the default and get to walking in the Spirit. Lord, I want nothing but praise and worship to come out of my mouth no matter what situation and circumstance I'm walking through. So he fell to the ground in worship. And then he said this, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. Amen? And so here's a guy again, lost everything. Response. Wasn't really mine in the first place. Whatever the Lord gave me, he certainly can take away. And so if he gives and he takes, my only response is to praise in both the seasons of giving and the seasons of taking. Because what won't change is my heart postured toward the Lord in an attitude of praise and worship. It is one of those things that I talked about a month ago, and I said, you have a divine weapon to fight the enemy's plans against you. Praise and worship is one of those divine weapons. You ever notice that when you're in one of those moods, when you are in your soup, and when you're in your soup, there is what feels like nothing to bring you comfort. And all of a sudden, you hit that Apple playlist. And you look at this little thing called praise and worship. And when you're looking at that praise and worship list, you then have to make a cognitive decision. I don't want to praise the Lord. Despite what I'm going through right now, I'm literally going to admit that I don't want to praise you. No, that cannot be. Hit play and start praising. And you will watch that your situation does not change. But guess what does? The situation between your ears changes a little bit. And all of a sudden you have a little bit more gusto to take on the battle that you are literally standing right in front of. Because the battle's not going to be removed. I can say that confidently. In my life, he does not just take it away. I wish he would. I wish he would. As tears again are just pouring down my face, Lord, take it. Lord, take it. Lord, take it. Open my eyes and it's still in front of me. I guess it's not getting taken away, so then what other option do I have? Praise in the mountains, praise in the valleys, and praise everywhere in between. Amen? So I just love that. I love looking at Job's life because as much as what I was going through, and it felt like I was literally on the verge of death. I didn't lose my dog, my cat. I didn't lose my vehicles. My house wasn't toppled. My servants that I don't have. You get what I'm getting at? Like nothing that I was going through even remotely compares to what this man was going through. And his response, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. And it was almost like I could just put myself in that situation and watch him just go, it's just stuff. If he wants me to have more, I'll have more. And if he doesn't, there must be a reason why he removed it. It's just stuff. Amen? So now chapter 2 real quick, because it's one thing to say it's just stuff. Stuff comes and goes. And how true really is that? We put way too much importance on the earthly treasure side of things that literally come and go. You don't have any more money today? Okay, tomorrow you can go make more money. You don't have this today? Okay, tomorrow you can go get this. It's this idea of instant gratification all the time. And my whole thing is, what if it was removed for a purpose? And that purpose is, of course, God's will and has nothing to do with my understanding. But now we get to chapter 2 and we see on another day, beginning in chapter 2, verse 1, that on another day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them to present himself before. And the Lord said to Satan, where have you come from? Are you guys expecting a different answer? Satan does what Satan does, the same things over and over and over again. He has no new tactics. And so his response, of course, is from roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it. Then Job said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. And he still maintains his integrity, though you incited me against him to ruin him without any reason. Verse 4, skin for skin, Satan replied, a man will give all he has for his own life. But now stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, very well then, he is in your hands, but you must spare his life. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord, and he afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Then Job took a piece of broken pottery and scraped himself with it as he sat among the ashes. Verse 9, his wife said to him, are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die. Verse 10, he replied, you are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? In all this, Job did not sin in what he said. And I just love that. I love that about Scripture. I love that about Job. I love even putting myself in some of these situations. But what I really love this is when you don't have your health, you really don't have much at all. And when you don't have much at all, and you are looking at what feels like death right in the face, again, the questions start coming up. Is Jesus enough? And if you haven't had those moments recently, I would recommend that we have those moments without having any sort of loss before we have to get there. But if you do have to have loss, the proper response is understanding the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. The proper response is, shall we accept good from God, but not the troubles? And then I just sat there and I thought, wait a minute. These troubles that is mentioned here in Job. I thought only good things come from God. And if only good things come from God, I do not equate troubles with good things. And as soon as I start thinking like that, that's where my thought process needs to be redirected and changed immediately. Because I can tell you that Romans 8:28 says this about the Lord, that he can take all things and turn them around for the good of those who love him. So what that tells me is no matter what I'm going through, whether it's good or whether it's trouble, if my faith aligns with what God is telling me in life and I'm walking according to his will, that this crappy situation is going to be used for my benefit. It is good. And then I start thinking, how can we even say these things that feel like death are good things? And the first person that comes to mind is the Apostle Paul. So we're going to transfer over into the New Testament. We're going to put our good friend Job aside. Great character. Go read the whole book. We don't have time to discuss all of that today, but it is a good read. But I'm going to read now in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. Maybe. Yep. 2 Corinthians chapter 12. Second Corinthians chapter 12, just real quick, because we are going to jump right into the middle of this. But this is Paul, and he's penning some pretty interesting statements. And he's basically saying, if I got to boast, I'm going to boast in the one thing that I'm confident in boasting about, the Lord. Nothing to do with me, even though, and this is kind of how he says, even though I have more reasons to boast about who I am than all of you do. I don't want to be boasting in that. I want to boast in the Lord. And so he jumps right into it, and he says this in verse 6, even if I should choose to boast, I would not be a fool because I would be speaking the truth. So basically, what is he saying? I have a reason to boast in who I am and what I do, and I don't want to. And so then he says, I refrain, so no one will think more of me than what is warranted by what I do or say, or because of these surpassingly great revelations. Therefore, in order to keep me from being conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. And so what I love about that is, again, here's Paul, and we can argue, we can debate on what this thorn in the flesh really means. We can ask if it's a spiritual infliction. We can ask if it's physical. It doesn't really matter. What I do know is this. It mattered so much to Paul that he brought it to the Lord, and he's pleading with the Lord. Please, take this from me. And the response is one of the most powerful statements in Scripture. My grace is sufficient for you. In other words, my grace is all you need. And we do not like that answer. And so then again, I'm sitting here thinking about this. What does that even mean scripturally and simply? How can I wrap my mind around what this means to say, his grace is sufficient for me? And what I've come up with is a couple simple things. This means that God's divine help and favor is enough to sustain you through any weakness and suffering. Do you accept that? Grace is something that you don't deserve. And so if you don't deserve it, that must mean that all you need to do is accept it. So when you are at the lowest of your lows, when it feels like everything has come against you and the only option you have is death, remind yourself that God's divine help and favor is enough to sustain you through every storm. And so what does that mean? Simply put, that means you don't have to be strong on your own accord. That's good news. You don't have to rely on your own strength to get through your own storms. You get to rely on his. Again, grace, and I say it this way, is divine favor, and so that will always see you through your toughest times. Do you have divine favor? And as a child of God, confidently, each and every one of us should be saying, yes, we have divine favor. Third quick point is grace is our source of confidence. And I already said that. Again, it's something that we don't have to tap into our own strength. Nothing about our own self is going to get you through that situation. So when we focus on grace, we're choosing to focus on, again, who He is. You cannot separate grace and the very presence of God Himself. Those two things are hand in hand. Jesus is grace, grace is Jesus, and here's the promise. Hebrews 13, chapter 5 says, never will I leave you, nor will I forsake you. And so if that's the promise that we have this promise. We have promise A, 1A, my grace is sufficient enough for whatever you're going through. And promise 1B is, I'm not going to leave you. And so when we're looking at those two promises, no matter what we're going through, what idiot would look at that and say, I need more? No, you have absolutely everything that you need and more because of who He is. I want to read this from the Message, because the way Paul writes this, or the way it's translated in the Message, is just a little bit more eye-opening. So hang with me real quick, just listen. But 2 Corinthians chapter 12, starting in verse 10 from the Message, says this. Because of the extravagance, thank you, extravagance. Sorry. Because of the extravagance of those revelations, and so I wouldn't get a big head, I was given the gift of a handicap to keep me in constant touch with my limitations. And so I'm reading that, and I'm sitting here going, okay, I already see how the dialogue is written and how it's already shifted. He's not looking at this thing that he's going through, as we see in the NIV, is this thorn in the flesh, something that he's pleading, I got to get rid of, I got to get rid of. You got to take it from me. The Message is sitting here giving us a different outlook. It's this idea that he was given this handicap for one purpose and one purpose only. To keep him rooted in who Christ was and keep him from being conceited in thinking that he was actually anything special. He goes on to write, or the Message goes on to translate this way. Satan's angel did his best to get me down. How many of you guys know that? He does his best to get us down. And he does his best to keep us down. That's why the Word says you don't need to do anything but stand. And stand firm in who He is. Righteous fall 7 times, but they keep getting back up. That's the biggest point that we need to understand. It's not about how many times you fall down. It will always be about how many times you stand back up. So Satan did his best to get him down. And what he in fact did was pushed me right to my knees. That's how the Message says it. And so again, what you have to understand is this is a bigger, I wish I would have thought about this earlier, but in Genesis chapter 50, at the culmination of Joseph's life, he says one very important thing. What you intended to harm me, God used and turned around for the saving of many lives. What if that was our first outlook in every single trial that came up? Yes, the enemy intends to harm you for it. But my God says what was intended to harm me is going to be flipped around, and not only flipped around but for my benefit, but it will also be flipped around for the benefit of others. So it pushed him right to his knees. When you have nothing else, that is where you dig the deepest down going. When I have nothing else and I'm down on my knees and tears are just pouring from, yes, Jesus, you are enough. You are enough for me. You've pushed me right to my knees, right to the point where I have to acknowledge that I have no source of strength within myself to deal what I'm dealing with. And that's when he always steps in. Says, no danger then of walking around high and mighty. So again, humility. Sometimes we go through things that simply just humble us. And at first I didn't think of it as a gift. I love that. I love how he says that. At first I didn't think of it as a gift. And he begged God to remove it. 3 times I did that, and then he told me, my grace is enough. It's all you need. My strength comes into its own in your weakness. This is my favorite part about the Message translation. Once I heard that, I was glad to let it happen again. Those are things that you cannot do if you are complaining, if you're mumbling, if you're questioning, if you have a lack of faith in why you're going through the storms that you're going through. You cannot come to the conclusion, you cannot come to this as I'm happy that this is happening to me. But the next statement in the Message is even more shocking to me. I quit focusing on the handicap and I began to appreciate the gift. So now he is no longer identifying this as a thorn, as something that is causing immense. He's identifying it as a gift, as something that he can solely look at and out of a choice. Well, I thought about doing it this way. I thought about complaining about it. I considered for a moment if this was too big for me. And then you're going, but yes, it is too big for me. So now that I've considered it for a moment, I'm happy that this is here. Why am I happy that it's here? Because it drove me right to the cross. And right at the cross is exactly where we need to be. We're going to finish with one more scripture, or a couple more, but one more idea in Scripture. And it goes hand in hand exactly with what Paul is talking about here. And as soon as I say it, it won't shock any of you. But just imagine if we quit focusing on the problem and we started acknowledging it as an opportunity. James 1:2 says this, consider it pure joy. And again, I get stuck on that word consider. Because what I think we do with consider is, no thanks. Right, I thought about it. I thought about it for a minute, and whatever I'm going through, no thanks. I cannot count that as joy, Lord. So again, James 1:2 says, consider it pure joy. Consider is not think about it for a second and say no thanks. Consider it in the biblical definition is think about and do. Think about and do. Don't just think that it's going to be joy. No, make it joyful. And again, when you make it joyful, the only way that can happen is through praise. That is the only way that you can make a situation that you're in unjoyful and turn it into joy. Praise. I'm going to praise you for who you are. I'm going to praise you that you don't leave me. I'm going to praise you that you don't forsake me. I'm going to praise you that your grace is more than enough for me. I'm going to praise you that you're going to see me through this. And if you don't see me through this, then I'm going to praise you because you're taking me home. So either way, I guess I'm praising one way or another. And now, again, when you're praising, you're going to find out even when you have nothing to give but moans and groans, something inside of you is, dare I say it, joyful. And it's because it's a choice. Joy is a choice. But James goes on to say, whenever you face trials of many kinds. And so I love that. That means not just when you're sick. That means not when your car broke down. That means not this, not that. When you face trials of many kinds. So I guess what am I getting at? No matter what you're going through, the command is this, joy. And how do you become joy? Praise and worship. Stop looking at your situation and start looking at Him. I want to get to one final point here, because sometimes I often feel like we look at these trials and we consider it for a moment and we say, no, thank you. We're not going to consider this as joy. We're not going to be happy about what we're going through. We're not going to look at this as an opportunity to say, Lord, what are you teaching me? And all of these things that we can go through in our human understanding. And it comes down to this. Sometimes I don't believe that we think there's a purpose to our trials. Did you hear that? Sometimes I think we fail to understand that we have a God in high places that has directed our very footsteps for tomorrow before tomorrow even takes place. There is a purpose to every trial and every test that you go through. And what I love about James is he just tells us exactly what that purpose is. Because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Want to know where our first problem is? We don't let perseverance persevere. Does that make sense? This is what the word is saying. The word says, let perseverance finish its work, so that when it is finished, you will not be lacking anything. What we do is, that's too hard for me. I'm not going to persevere through that. That's too difficult. Get me out. I'm looking for an easier way, Lord. And his response always will be, my grace is sufficient for you. Amen? Trials have purpose. And if you're struggling with perseverance, you're struggling with purpose, James 1:5 then says this, if any of you lacks wisdom. Spoiler alert, we all lack wisdom. So that means whenever you face a trial, whenever you face a test, your default is going to be looking at this with a lack of wisdom. I'm just saying it that way. And so Isaiah chapter 55 verse 8 reminds me of this. God's ways are higher than mine. God's understanding is higher than my understanding. God's plans are better than my plans. God's power is certainly more powerful than anything that I can claim to have. And so if we lack, James 1:5 says this, you should then ask, so that you are no longer lacking in why you're going through the trial that you're going through. And you're called to have perseverance. Again, perseverance, what's that word mean? Moving forward when you literally can't. That's what perseverance means. I don't care if there is 1 centimeter of moving forward or 1 mile of moving forward. My God called me to stand up and move forward. That's what perseverance looks like. And again, now you persevere until it's completed. And I know that we don't like that, because what that means is, when is it completed? When can I start looking at signs, at things, at road marks, at things in my life going, okay, now I can see the next step. Now I can see. What if you never do? What if you never do? And we're going to close with this statement today. And this is ultimately a powerful reminder. So as Isaiah 55 verse 8 tells us, God's ways are higher. His understanding is higher than ours. And then God in James says, if you don't have wisdom, ask for it. Well, if you don't know where to get wisdom, I'm going to tell you, the book of Proverbs is a great way to obtain wisdom. And so if you need wisdom, you can certainly ask the Lord to give you wisdom by opening up the book of Proverbs and starting to read. And when you start to read, you're going to come into Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6, and it boils down to a couple simple life approaches. And it starts with this: trust in the Lord with all of your heart. That's the first thing. You trust in the Lord with all of your heart. If you can look at a situation and you can say, despite what I'm going through, I trust the Lord with all of my heart. what you are then saying is your God is bigger than the storm that you're facing. Second part of Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5, it says this, lean not on your own understanding. Want to know when we get in trouble? When we lean on our own understanding. Want to know how not to lean on your own understanding? Get in the Word, get in prayer, and get a nice circle that you can rely on, that you can talk to. I think about Job, and the one thing that I think about with his wife, and I could just imagine him as she's saying, curse God. And Job just shaking his head going, that's the last thing I need to hear. I need somebody to come alongside of me and remind me that praise and worship is what I should be doing right now. Not this idea that I'm going to be cursing God in a situation that I'm going through. But again, what you want to do is you want to lean on your own understanding. You want to have your Bible closed. You want to have your prayer line closed. You want to have your circle closed off. And you want to figure out how to fix it. Good luck. Proverbs goes on to say this, in all your ways, submit to Him. Humble yourselves before the Lord. God opposes the proud, but He gives grace to the humble. So when we come in front of Him, and we come in front of Him walking by faith, not by sight, saying, Lord, I trust you. Lord, I'm going to lean on you. Lord, I submit to you. Here's the outcome. He will make your path straight. It doesn't say after you do all of those things, you then have to go make your own path straight. And so again, where ultimately I'm trying to go with all of this, whether it's because you were sick, whether it's because you lost your job, whether it's because you lost your house, whether it's because you lost your car, any one of us can start mounting up the reasons to have complaints. And I'm sitting here today going, we can look at them as complaints, or we can look at them as opportunities to tap into the Lord's grace. And today I want an opportunity to tap into the Lord's grace. Today I want an opportunity to proclaim that it is not my way that I'm going after. It's His way. And when I submit to Him, His promise is He makes our path straight. Amen? Let's pray and get back to worship. So Heavenly Father, we thank you. Lord God, we thank you so much that we do not have